Hi, this is Lady Lecture K, and this is a Dreams Gadget tutorial. We have finished off gameplay gear, and now we're into the next one along. So let me just close that down. Cameras and lighting is the next section, the purple section. And our first object is a camera. Now I say object because it is a gadget, but it's a camera as well. It's not something that is visible in the Dreamiverse. You can't use this as an actual camera, but it is a gadget. But it helps that we have something that's shaped like a camera, because it can tell you immediately which way the camera is facing because of the shape of it. So it's a really handy gadget in that term. Before I put it down, let me just show you what I built here. I've just got an archway and a puppet, so I've got something to look at with my camera. Now, the normal camera view, as you can see, is from the back of our player. Third-person camera is inside the controller sensor of the puppet, and it will follow our character as he walks around the scene. That is our standard camera. Okay, so what happens when I put down another camera? So I'll put this camera down. First thing to note, you can place the cameras manually like this. Just move them around, change the angle, that sort of thing. However, I recommend what you do is L1 and X, go inside the camera, and then move around and get the angle you want. This is fine control. So you get the view that you want, like that, and then you go L1 and circle, come out, and you can see it's put the camera exactly in the right position for what you just viewed. So that's the camera. Now let's see what happens. So immediately you can see that camera hasn't activated. We're still looking at our puppet. I'm going to possess our puppet and spin around here, and I can walk around exactly the same. But if I get within the realms of that camera view, it will swap to the camera. It's almost as if there is a trigger zone there, and now it's not following the puppet, as you can see. It's just viewing the camera. But as soon as you are outside the view of that camera, which is off to the side here, there we go, it will swap straight back to the third person camera inside our puppet. Now that's all good, but if you want some fine control, I would suggest that you pair up your camera with an actual trigger zone. So let's put a trigger zone down. So we'll say if the player is in this area, then we want the this camera to be active. So let's see what difference that makes. So we'll walk up, and there we go. It immediately shows us our archway, like that. So you have more control over at what point. It's not just the view. So you see he's behind, and you can see he can run in and out without it changing until he's out of the zone, like that. So people they find that it's difficult to understand how to use these cameras, and turning cameras on and off is like, how do I do that? Right, first of all then, know that these cameras can be powered on and off. Now, so you saw that it was powered on with a zone, but if you want it always powered on, so you could use something like a switch or a 1-1 counter. There we go, there's a 1-1 counter. Boom. Now you see that camera immediately turned on. It tried to get near to the puppet, but now it's turned on because the counter started, and then boom, we have now got this camera, and we no longer got access to actually. We have to, there we go. So that's fixed, and that's not going to go back to our player's camera at all, despite the fact that he's not in the scene and there's no trigger zone. So you can force cameras to be on, and you can set them up so there's multiple cameras. So if I put in multiple cameras, like this, we can set up a cutscene type deal, or we can set up switching from camera to camera. So let's get rid of our player. Let's say you've created a nice scene and you want to have something that operates each of these cameras in turn. So what we do is we'll put in a microchip, and I'll put in a selector, and I'll wire A to that one, B to that one, C to that one, like so. And then we'll put in a button press. Whoops, I don't know why I did that. That's the one I want. Let's delete those wires. I wish those wires weren't there. I never want them. Right, remote controller. And what button shall we use? We'll use the L1 and R1, shall we? So next with R1 and previous with L1. So now we start off with this one, and now press R1, L1 to go back, R1, R1, R1 again. So we're now circling through our different views. That's how people do it when they are making their artwork that you want to see. So that's really simple. So that way, that's a manually created thing. Now, if you wanted to do a cutscene with a timeline, then what you do is you take your timeline, and I'm going to put that camera in and that camera in. You'll notice they stay in place. They stay in the position that you left them as, but now they're in a timeline. So we'll turn that on. There we go. So it's now going through a timeline of which camera is what. So you can put them in a timeline, you can put them on a selector, you can have them powered on with switches and trigger zones. There's a lot you can do with the camera to turn them on. So that's that out of the way. Have I got rid of all my cameras now? Yeah. Okay, so let's put in a new camera and have a look at the tweak menu. Whoops. Force of habit. Right, okay. So there's only 2 pages. The first page is all to do with the focus and the field of view and that sort of thing, and also the transition type. So this is how this is going to now transition from, I believe. We can try that out in a minute. How long it takes to transition from that camera, field of view, exactly. So the first one is focus distance, and the second one is aperture. Both of these together in tandem will get you different focusing. Now, this is something that people that do photography will know. Different apertures and different focus distances give you different effects. I'm going to leave you to experiment with this so that you can see, but we'll put that high and that low, and you see everything is pretty blurry. If we put that low and that high, everything is nice and crisp. So things to play about with here, just to change the focus length. And you need to fiddle with both of these in tandem to get the effects. Playing about with just one slider doesn't actually show anything up. Right, transition type then. Let's do a little experiment. We'll put down a timeline. Oops. Okay. Timeline. Right, let's stick our first camera in. Now, if I copy this and move it, you'll notice there are two separate cameras. So when you copy it, it's not just, it is actually making another camera, so that you're aware. Let's just lengthen those. So you can push up on the D-pad, make those bigger, so that you can have them. Now the transitions, you need these butting up against each other in a timeline. If you have a space and there's another camera, then it will zip to that camera and then back to your cameras here. Let's put that in a loop. Okay, so we have this camera and then this camera. At the moment, let's stick them both as cut. And we can't see it in play mode. I've got it in play mode here, but you cannot see the cameras. You have to actually put it into a full play mode. So there we go. So that's camera 1. And that's camera 2. And that cut. And then cut back to camera 1. And then camera 2. So let's change camera 1's transition to ease in. And see what difference that makes. So it cut to the second one and eased into the first. Cut to the second, eased into the first. So that is, let's try ease out, see what that does. Still cut to the second one. So because this one is a cut camera, it's it's 2 and not from. So it's this will cut to this camera, even though this transition is ease out. It won't ease out to this. It'll ease out when you come back to this camera. So it's a little bit complicated. So it's how the transition comes to the camera, not how the transition goes from the camera. That appears to be the situation. So it's different to the keyframes, because the keyframes, the transition goes in here. So it's a little bit more obvious what you're doing, because you don't put you can't put transitions in here with the cameras like you can with the keyframes. It's all inside the cameras. So it's what it transitions to that's important. So your first camera, I recommend cut. Then you can do whatever you like. So we have a smooth transition now. So the first camera is straight in. And then we got an ease to the second camera. First camera straight in, ease to the second camera. There we go. So that's what they do. Right, let's have a look at the treat menu again. So this one is the transition time. So this is how long it takes for it to transition. Now, obviously, if you've got it in a timeline, then the amount of time that this camera is actually working is going to override if this number is actually bigger. So if your transition time is 14 seconds, it's not going to move very much. Let's just try that before the camera actually runs out. So it's going to do the transition. It's not taking any notice of that because having it in a timeline sort of overwritten this transition time. So This only really works if these cameras are powered somehow. They're not in a timeline. So bear that in mind. Transition time, if you've got it in timeline, it overwrites it. Field of view. Let's see what happens to the field of view. See there, that just makes that bigger or smaller. Adjusts the field of view, and this obviously affects if the player walks in front. But let's have a look. So if we have a very small field of view, there's a very small field of view. You'll notice your imp is very large. There we go, there's a very small field of view. Let's make it a big field of view. There we go. And we'll just go back to that camera. There we go. We're quite a far out. But you don't really need to worry about fiddling about with this if you're using this technique, because then you'll get it where you want it to be. However, this will says narrow field of view, widen field of view. There we go. You see now we can move in and out from where we've placed our camera. So there is a zoom situation here. So this is when it's useful because this has got an input socket. So you can change your field of view. So you can create a zoom effect live, so to speak. I'll have to fiddle about with that and see if I can make a tutorial so that I can create a zoom using narrow field of view. We haven't got it. We haven't got the option, have we? No. We have it here. So we can use the input and outputs here to change the field of view, which should create a zoom. But I'll have to play about with that and make a tutorial. So we'll see. Transition done. That's just a pulse that goes out once it has finished its transition. You can use that to activate something else, though, because there's nothing that says the camera is on. So you could do a transition done to say that that next camera is on. That will work. So it might be useful for that. Display back bars is what you'd expect. Again, I can't see it in this mode. I have to go into this mode. And now you see here are the cinematic black bars. Really good for cutscenes. Turn them on. People then know you're in a cutscene. There's a little bit of film or something like that. There we go. So there's that page. This page, we have the scale of the imp to start with. So this is all imp things. So let me get rid of these cameras and the timeline that I put in, put a fresh one in. Because there's trouble with you fiddling about with. There we go. There we go. There's the camera. Right. So the imp is currently at 100%. So what you will see, there is our imp. Okay. But you can change it. So the imp scale, will make it quite small, 21%. And now you see we've got a little imp. And it looks as if the imp is closer to the object. It's over here. It's not in front of us. It's over there with the... It also has the effect of making this look further away. We make it really large. And then our imp is much closer to us. It's still going to affect everything. If they want to do a grab or something, it will still do that over there. But now it feels like it's more... You see the shadow of the imp there? It feels like the imp is much closer to us than it is to the object. So you can fiddle about with the imp size. That can make a huge difference, especially if you're going to be picking up things or doing switches or something with a fixed camera view. You could make your imp nice and small so you know that you've got to press buttons over here. That's quite handy. Imp min distance and max distance. So at the moment, let's set the minimum that everything can be. That's the situation. That's what we've got for an imp. That's how far away he can be. And because we've got a fixed camera here, let's set that up there. It's really hard to tell what this is doing, to be frank. Yeah, it's one of those things where you play about with it and it does absolutely nothing at all. So I've got no way of demonstrating the imp and max and min distance. Let's see what it says in these instructions, so that will help. Set the minimum distance of the imp from the camera within the focus distance. So it's to do with the settings you've got on the focus distance here. We'll alter these. So it's one of those things where it's in combination with other things, and you need to play about with it and experiment and see what it does. Right, next one, follow imp. This is a the angle will tilt to follow the imp. At the moment it won't tilt to follow the imp. Let's put it to its maximum. And now when I move the imp, you see the camera is moving with the imp. So adds a little bit of realism, I guess. So if you like that effect, there we go. So as the imp moves, the camera moves with the imp. Could be fun. Could give you the suggestion that there's a player with eyes looking at the imp. Let's just put that back. Disable controller sensor input. Okay, so if you're making a cutscene, this is extremely handy. That disables the controller sensor. It disables the off-screen indicator, and you can't control your player. So let's put a player in so we can see that in action. So here's our puppet. So here's our puppet. We can walk around and we'll get within the realms of the camera. There we are. And he can still walk around. Right. Let's put him back. Let's turn this on. So you notice he can walk around. That hasn't done anything to the player until he turns the camera on by walking in. And now I'm stuck. I can't move my player at all. The camera is now activated, and my player is stuck there because I've got no controller sensor anymore. So you need a way of turning that back on. If you're going to have this on, you have to have a way of turning that back off in a cutscene, but you'd have that on a timeline and the camera would stop working, and then as soon as that's not working anymore, that's irrelevant. So it's to do with the power on of this camera. If I turn the power off on that camera, I've got full access to do whatever I want with this. Right, the other one that is on here is hide imps. Now, this will hide the imp when this particular camera is active. So you see we have an imp here. Camera's active like this. So if I was to... Yeah. It's not working now because the camera needs to be active. But if you didn't have a player, let's get rid of the player, and you have hide imps. Right, so at the moment I've got an imp, and if you're doing some artwork, there we go. We don't want the imp there. This should work, and it's not working. It's not hiding the imp at all. That's because I've turned it off, isn't it? There we are. So we've got no imp. There we go. However, I will say this is only for this individual camera. And if you wanted to turn off the imps on the entire scene, I still think your better option is the global settings. Allow imps, not allow imps. That's a better one for getting rid of your imps than using the cameras, because you have to do it on every single camera to make sure that the imp never gets shown, while the global one is global for the entire scene. So I think the global settings is better, But it might be that you only want to hide the imp under certain camera situations. So that's good for that. And that's it. That's the tweak menu. That's all that does. There's obviously a lot to be said about the cameras and how to use it. And there are some tutorials that people put in on how to make cutscenes and things. So check out dreamschool.co.uk for a lot of examples of how to make cutscenes, how to use the cameras from other people, other tutorial makers. But in the meantime, I'll catch you in your dreams.